How to Get Good. Perfect Practice When Things Are Imperfect by Paul Howe. Narrated by James Patrick Cronin. Introduction. This book contains information that you may already be implementing in your life. It isn't so much a secrets of learning as it is an attempt to break down the way we learn, whether it be for languages, a musical instrument, a sport, or anything, really. You'll probably recognize instances where you were doing something along the lines of what you listen to here. By making clearer the principles that you already practice, and by describing how the adult mind works, I hope to make your learning more efficient. I speak of an adult mind in the sense of one engaged in systematic learning, to be contrasted with a child's more natural picking up of knowledge with little to no consciousness of doing so. However, there is no real line between the two types of learning. Adult learning has a non-conscious element to it, just as child learning involves some structure whose forms are only later pondered on as one matures. The ideas I present here are intended to be usable for those at a high school level of schooling and above, although some of the references may be considered too ancient, requiring a quick Googling. These principles of learning should be applicable to a wide variety of fields, not limited to certain methods or disciplines. However, my orientation and primary interest is in music, and I use musical examples for the most part. Whenever I speak of learning a song in the book, I could mean any piece of music or any subject being learned. I think it would be easy to apply the examples I use to your chosen field. So you might say this is a music book, even though it really isn't a music book. It could have been solely a music book, though. Initially, I had conceived it as a reworking of a book I had written in 2011 about improvising in rock guitar. Thinking about it some more, though, I realized that what I wanted to share had less to do with guitar, and not even just music, but education itself and its connection to personal growth. As ambitious as that sounds, I only discuss what I have found to be true in my life. Perhaps the book confirms stuff that you're already doing. But if you find what I talk about to be at odds with your experience, the difference may be in how these ideas are expressed, and not so much the substance. If you are certain of another, contrary way of looking at this subject of education, send me mail at paul@paulspurpose.com. I'd be curious to hear your take on things. Clever trolls are welcome. Thank you to my family, the older folks, you know who you are, for the influence, and the younger ones for the hope. Paul Howe, QC, 2018. Mindset. Learning as a lifestyle. Whatever you do, you bring your personality to it. In order to learn effectively, your actions have to reflect your overall lifestyle. Although we tend to talk about practice as so many minutes or hours set aside in a day, the principles and mechanisms behind the practice are evident at all times. For example, learning requires openness to new experience. You have to be willing to let go of your preconceptions that keep you from seeing the world differently. Every new thing learned is a matter of a shift in perspective. Your openness to practice reveals your openness to other things in life, however uncomfortable the transition to a new way of thinking. Which brings me to another aspect of practice. Faith. You don't know exactly what you're doing, otherwise it would not be a learning experience or something worth investing your time in. You persist in these strange movements and ideas even though they feel unfamiliar and unsettling. This, to me, requires faith. That in the middle of the moment, often with the end result out of sight, what you are doing has value in itself. You need faith when the sense of gratification you normally feel in the familiar is absent. I believe this is a worthwhile attitude to have, not just in the field you consciously choose to improve in. In deliberate practice, results have to be secondary. If your focus is primarily on results, the tendency is to get sloppy in performing the specific techniques required to achieve those results. Once you develop a technique to perform, the only value of results is to indicate whether you need to modify your technique and how. But results, since they are only observable in the future,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?